So now it's on to retirement planning. So the things to keep in mind about retirement planning is that there are a lot of misconceptions out there. People don't they tend to be unrealistic, shall I say? Their expectations that in retirement they'll be reducing spending. They'll they're since they're only going to be around for another 15 years, then only plan for a kind of a short time frame, if you will, horizon. The combination of Social Security and whatever pension you might, if you're lucky enough to receive one from your company, will pay for that should cover your living expenses, and benefits will increase with inflation over time. Social Security, for example, employers' health plans and Medicare will cover all of my medical expenses, and there's plenty of time to start saving for retirement. So, why start now? And then again, what good would just a few dollars here and there make? So why bother? So it's very important to understand that when we're talking about making decisions and these trade-offs and opportunity costs that we've mentioned before, quite frequently actually, it's important to understand that to forego some of these expenses, some of these things that we would prefer to actually have in our possession right now, because again, it's always preferable to spend rather than to save, right? It's the opportunity cost to save is quite high. But by saving now, what will happen is that what you always have to tell yourself, two things to remind yourself. One is that you're paying yourself down the road. This is what you're doing for yourself at a later date, at another point in time. Secondly, always bear in mind that rule of 72, where even a little bit is going to, because of compound interest, is going to accumulate rather rapidly. It sneaks up on you in a good way. So anyway, only saving now and curtailing spending can ensure a comfortable retirement later on. 75% of workers expect to live well, if not better than they do now when they retire, but only 20% of those surveyed have begun to save seriously for retirement. So there's an expectation gap is really what we're saying. So it's important to start early. So again, examples from age 25 to 65, you invest $3 a month, $300 a month at a 9% rate of return. Then at 65, you have a nest egg of $1.4 million. Waiting 10 years to start gets it down to $550,000 at age 55. And waiting another 20 years, you'll only have $20,000 at age 65. Again, time matters. Time is your friend in this case. It doesn't feel like it when you're young. It's, you think that, 20, 30, 40 years is a long way off, but it comes very, very rapidly, whether you want it to or not. Private pensions and Social Security just are not enough to cover, and inflation diminishes your purchasing power, and it does not hit everybody in the same manner. It can be quite insidious, in fact. So always bear this in mind, is that the inflation part is something that does eat away at your savings. So once again, to reiterate, the compounding investment is it does wonders over time, but you have to give it time to work, right? So for every 10 years you delay before starting to save for retirement, you'll need to save 3 times as much each month to catch up. So that catch-up part is very, very difficult to, very, very difficult to make up for. And, unless you plan on living to age 150, you better get started now, is the point. And even if you were to live to age 150 and you started, 10 years from now, you're still behind. So always kind of keep these things in mind. Starting early, and there's an expression when you ask somebody when is the best time to start saving. Of course, the answer is when you're young. And the next question is then, when is the next best time to start saving? And the answer to that is right now. Okay. So first analyze your current assets and liabilities, know where you're at, and get a good idea, try to get an idea of what your spending needs will be going forward. Perhaps you'll have your home paid off or something along those lines. So you think, well, there's reduced costs associated with mortgage payments, but bear in mind that you still have to pay property taxes. You still have to pay insurance on the home. There's still maintenance, upkeep that's associated with the home, especially, if you've been living in the home for some period of time, replacing furnaces and, roofs and so on and so forth. So again, you have to figure out some rational plan for your retirement income, how you're going to manage your cash flow. So the last thing, of course, is that we have on here is that working part-time if necessary. This is something that you may well have to do to catch up on, from being behind. Okay, so it's not. How do I want to say it? It's not an emergency, but typically there is some urgency with this. So always kind of bear this in mind. So the point is, again, when you start evaluating these things, you realize, well, you have, for example, your home might be the largest asset that you have, most likely. In most cases, it really is for most people. Is it something where you could downsize perhaps? Or you could do something else, move into an apartment or something that would make more sense in order to economize a bit. So review all of your current assets aside just from your house, like your life insurance policies and so on and so forth, to see where those are at, what situation you're in. So also, again, reviewing your investments to calibrate them in terms of maybe you don't want to, you're not keen on being as aggressive perhaps when you're older, and you're going to depend upon that income from some income stream from those investments. So you may have to alter your investment strategy. And other things happen along the way for divorce, etc. Is that making sure that you have all of your paperwork in order, so things are correctly divided up and benefits wise, and things are put in place going forward. So there's a lot of prep work that's involved with preparing yourself for retirement. So when you start to run your budgets, and you have to do this is an update because you're changing. There's a major lifestyle change when you're retiring, right? So you have to consider, how your expenses will change. Will you still have a mortgage? If you don't have a mortgage, again, as I mentioned before, you still have taxes and insurance to pay for. Your tax burden will likely be lower if your income goes down. Nonetheless, you still have to contend with that, to calibrate that. Some of your expenses may go up. Expenses that you would, you have time away from work, so you have more leisure. So you may want to do more traveling. Other things that might occur is that, when you're making, planning gifts and contributions for, for your children, grandchildren, etc., things to, nieces, nephews, or whoever, those expenses are things that you have to kind of consider, and always you have to adjust your expenses for inflation. Because inflation will continue to take a bite out of your income to some degree, to one degree or another, going forward. So all these things are things that we have to consider always. So when it comes to the first thing is, where do you want to live when you're retired? Are you going to stay close to family and where you're currently at? Are you planning on staying in your own home? Are you planning on moving to a more suitable residence? Perhaps you may have been in a larger home that you no longer need. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and remember that also as you're getting older, is that your mobility, you start to have mobility issues and any other number of things, health issues that may cause it more difficult to get in and out of your house even. So there are things to consider when we talk about housing, and so you want to make sure that when you do if you're planning on staying in the current home that you're in, making sure that it's prepared properly for your retirement years, because again, things will change over that time period when you're retired. So again, always kind of keep these things in mind. And in advance of that, perhaps you might want to think about moving into an apartment or changing your residence, maybe the location. If you don't want to live in a colder climate, then move to a warmer climate, and you do all of your research up front to find out all that you can about that environment.